Welcome to the Hidden Orchard podcast. On this podcast, we will explore the deeper concepts from the intersection of Jewish wisdom, the New Testament, and science. We will bring you fascinating insights from the ancient and modern sources, all with the goal of improving and getting the most out of life. Visit our website at thehiddenorchard.com to subscribe to our newsletter and get more information like this. Now, today's episode. As a child growing up in the church, admittedly I had acquired a negative view of the Pharisees, the dark villains of many Sunday school stories, and their combative portrayal in the Gospels. It seemed to me the word Pharisee was an acceptable form of a curse word. However, I recall the moment much later when I began to study deeper and found this to be extremely inaccurate. A careful and objective study of the Pharisees and their worldview and their general thinking process has brought me to an entirely new place. Getting it wrong is not inconsequential. Understanding the context and the nuance surrounding the Pharisees will become an increasingly vital tool for understanding the New Testament. Without knowledge and insight, the former conclusions are all too easy to develop. If not for the groundwork the Pharisees laid, their interpretations that point to and pave the way for Messiah, and their tireless fight to bring the Torah to the masses, the world would look very different today. So who are the Pharisees? Tracing their roots back to the time of the Maccabees, circa 175 BC, the Pharisees took on the role to challenge the increasing corruption that began to emerge in the priesthood during the late Second Temple era. At a time when positions of high priest and the priesthood were sold to the highest bidder, the Torah became trampled in a dash for political expediency. Not willing to let that happen, the Pharisees arose and spoke truth to power, many times losing their lives in large numbers in the process. They were esteemed by the everyday people, according to Josephus. This is because they were deeply involved in their communities, activists, seeking to bring resources like financial, food, education, and other charity to the people across the land of Israel. Their schools and influence went a long way toward preserving the traditions and democratizing the wisdom of the Creator for everyone. There were two schools of Pharisaic thought by the late Second Temple era. It might come as a surprise to some, but the Pharisees were not one homogeneous sect who shared the same beliefs. There was great diversity in thought, which led to many discussions, for which they are commonly known. This is why many of Yeshua's teachings agree or align with one group or another. This shouldn't be surprising, because as a child, Yeshua was said to have been sitting at the feet of the elders, learning and asking questions. In the generation before the events of the New Testament, there were two primary schools of Pharisaic thought, named for their rabbis and elders, Rabbi Hillel and Rabbi Shammai. And the schools were called Beit Hillel, the house of Hillel, and Beit Shammai, the house or school of Shammai. Both of these rabbis epitomize the idea of arguing for the sake of heaven. As the Mishnah Pirkei Avot says, every dispute that is for the sake of heaven will endure. The word argument or dispute in Hebrew is machloket. The word comes from the root that means to make smooth. This is the idea of an argument for the sake of heaven, that it creates a smooth adjoining of two or more ideas. In the modern sense of the word, we tend to think there has to be one right and one wrong answer, a winner and a loser. This dichotomy already sets us off on the wrong foot at understanding Talmudic dialectics. This is not the case with Jewish disputation. In fact, this is why many of the writings that contain codified law, i.e. the Talmud, often leave a dispute without a clear answer. Perhaps there's a third answer there waiting for us to figure out. This in itself is a topic for another article. But during the time of Rabbi Hillel and Rabbi Shammai, they held about 3 disagreements with each other. Despite this, they modeled brotherly love and treated each other with the utmost respect. However, major problems began to emerge after these elders both passed away, Rabbi Hillel in the year 10 CE and Rabbi Shammai in the year 30 CE. After the death of these elders, their students began to argue outside the lines of peaceful discourse. And these days, these two schools are recorded to have generated over 300 disagreements with each other, a reality of which the Talmud scolds them for. Historian Zechariah Frenkel writes, "Until the days of Hillel and Shammai, disagreements of the law did not spread, and even Hillel and Shammai did not disagree except for 3 or 4 matters. And after the death of Shammai, disagreements increased, and the flame of conflict was ignited. and anger and rage increased in the hearts of Beit Shammai. And before we vilify Beit Shammai, we should understand that this was a passion for how one was to keep the Torah. We should also note that the Mishnah had not been codified yet, so many disputes were left unresolved, or to be disputed among rabbis and leaders. And this is the context of the New Testament. As you might imagine, the split among leadership would have left the simple people in a troubling situation, as everyday practices were now up for dispute. Rabbi Mordecai Yaffe tells us, even though their disagreement was for the sake of heaven, nevertheless the Torah had become, God forbid, as if it was two Torahs. This one forbids and this one permits. This one declares a matter impure, and the other declares it pure. And no law is known completely. We will look at this in deeper detail in another article. Generally, though, the Pharisees were pious people who sought the Creator in their daily observances, holding each other to the highest of standards. A somewhat comical but revealing passage in the Talmud illustrates this reality and the nature of how the Pharisees would critique themselves, continually striving to become better. And here's the passage. There are 7 kinds of Pharisees. The shoulder Pharisee, who ostentatiously carries his good deeds on his shoulder, so all can see them. The wait a moment Pharisee, who wants you to wait while he performs a mitzvah. The bruised Pharisee, who runs into a wall while looking at the ground to avoid seeing a woman. The reckoning Pharisee, who commits a sin, then does a good deed, and balances the one against the other. The pestle Pharisee, whose head is bowed in false humility, like a pestle and mortar. The Pharisee who asks, what is my duty so that I may do it? As if he had thought he had fulfilled every obligation already. The Pharisee from fear of the consequences if he doesn't perform, and the Pharisee from love. And the passage ends with, the greatest among them is the Pharisee who serves the Creator from a place of love. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. For more information like this, again, visit our website, thehiddenorchard.com. Sign up for our weekly newsletter and look out for other articles posted there throughout the weeks. Reach out to us and let us know what you think of the show. Until next time, have a great week.